Good morning. I am so happy to be here. I really am. We're looking at inquiry-based learning. It's an advanced pedagogical technique. And I've showed you two previous things, kind of describing an overview of the inquiry process, giving you an example of ways it might be used in a literacy or reading curriculum. This is the last in this series, and I'm going to give you some ideas of how to provide structure. You cannot just tell students to do something. You have to give them structure. And there are three ways to provide structure. For example, you may want to ask the question for students initially until they learn to ask the questions themselves. This is this very Vygotskian idea that thinking moves from outside to in. You provide scaffolding so that students can do this initially. For example, you may want to ask the question, boys and girls, what do you think people prefer on their pizza? And then you create this nice little graph. Or boys and girls, is it sunny out or is it rainy out? And then they go look out the window and they put a little star on the rainy side or the sunny side. All right? So we're asking questions initially. Those, by the way, are some very kindergarten, preschool, first grade types of questions to ask. You create a data chart or a data retrieval chart for students. And a data retrieval chart, as we see, is a graphic organizer used to help students collect data and organize data as they collect it. And you'll see examples of that. And then the lab report used to communicate the results. And I will show you this. Here you are. Ask the question. Here's a data retrieval chart. The question, what are the similarities and differences among major U.S. cities? This, of course, is a more advanced one. And here's a chart that they can use to organize, retrieve, and organize the data. And the lab report might look something like this. There are three parts to a lab report. This is just like any scientific lab report. Conditions, where you describe what happened, the question, and what happened before and during the inquiry. You should be able to replicate the inquiry based on reading this. The results, that's just the data. And then your answers or conclusions based on the data. For example, conditions. Our research group wanted to find out what kind of movies fifth grade students like to watch. We also thought it would be interesting to see if boys like different kinds of movies than girls do. We created a DRC that had 5 different kinds of movies. As they came out of the cafeteria after lunch, we asked students what kind of movies were their favorites. We recorded students' answers using a tally mark. Conditions. I could be able to read that and replicate that. And here's the nice data retrieval chart that I use, that I designed initially for students to help them collect data. Eventually, they would be able to create their own. The second part is the results. That's just the data. And here's where graphing comes in. We always create our graphs from most to least, totals most to least on top. So that's how we organize our categories in graphs. And then ideas or conclusions. Comedies are the kinds of movies that most 5th grade students liked. Both boys and girls like this kind of movie. If we were going to have a party with both boys and girls, this is the kind of movie we would get. More boys than girls liked action-adventure. More girls than boys liked horror thrillers. Nobody liked nonfiction movies. Data. And again, the basics of inquiry learning. Using the scientific method in a teaching and learning situation, you simply ask a question, gather data, and answer the question using data. We want creative, intelligent teachers. We need to allow them to be creative, intelligent, and this is one way to do that. Inquiry learning, an advanced pedagogical technique. And again, I have many more resources, etc., at the website there. I invite you to participate with me.